Okay, folks, today I wanted to talk about uh, what's happening lately, or I guess like in the last couple of years. Um, Even myself as a immigrant, living in a couple different places in the last few years, myself and my wife. Um, Especially in the last couple of years, a lot more people move to different places, move to different countries. They change their jobs, uh, they change their living situations. Um, but people have always done that, but recently, obviously, even thanks to the media that we have, the internet, it wasn't there like hundreds of years ago, or even like 40 years ago. Now it seems like everybody's moving, everybody's traveling, everybody's a camera, everybody's talking about something, and especially if you're interested in more, esoteric topics or hidden knowledge. Maybe you're researching astrology, astrocartography. So it's really interesting to understand, first of all, the reason why we want to move to different places. What is the force behind our decision, like to move from a place to another, learning new languages, meeting new people, starting our life from scratch again, or like starting a new life from scratch. Especially in the last couple of years, in the last few years, for many obvious reasons, a lot more people decided to move, and a lot more people decided to write about moving, relocating. And obviously, thanks to the internet, there's way more resources and there's also way more opportunities. Myself, as an Italian, historically, Italians are everywhere. They always moved everywhere. Still today, there's like many groups online about Italians moving abroad. There's probably like an Italian group in every city in the world almost. So for us, even culturally, has always been something important for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe starting from, who knows, 1,000 years ago when the Roman Empire was going everywhere. Uh, but a lot of cultures traditionally are like immigration cultures. Even the British Empire. The British were everywhere. Scandinavians, the Vikings, the Arabs, they always went everywhere. All kind of Semitic people, Asians, Africans. In reality, everybody always moved. Every culture always like moved, and especially if you're like me, you also research like ancient history or alternative history. There are a lot of documents and evidence that people always moved, always connected, always exchanged ideas, always intermarried, if you want to say that. Always exchanged knowledge, and with that, they also exchanged hidden knowledge, obviously. A lot of cultures in the world, even if they seem to be so far distant, they're like connected to each other. Obviously, that would be like a topic for another video because it would be a lot of to talk about more in depth. But even for us, living a more mundane life, even moving from a place to another, uh, it's not always something that relates to finding a job, finding new opportunities, making more money. But I believe also is important always to understand why we do the things that we do, and especially if you're like a person going to a different place, uh, moving from a culture to another, from a language to another, from a job to another, even from a city to another, meeting new people, but especially when it comes to big changes like relocating to a new country. There's always something inside of us pushing for this move. For a lot of people, it's a like huge leap of faith, as they say. For other people, it's easier. But I think there's always something inside of us making this decision for us, even sometimes reasons that we don't know. That's why it's always important to know ourselves, to understand ourselves, in order to understand other people and other cultures. And I'm saying all of that, like I said at the beginning of this video, because in the last couple of years, feels like a lot more people moved, not only to escaping from wars or famine or whatever. There's way more of those so-called professionals that are moving. People that maybe in a few years ago in a different situation they wouldn't have moved. In the last couple of years, for many reasons that we know they had to, they were more inclined to do. And for a lot of people, it's been like a forced move. So I believe for a lot of those people, it will be even more important to know themselves, to know the reason why they do the things that they do, why they decided to move. Because there's been like definitely a change in our daily lives. A lot of people say a change in the whole of society, also a change in our way of thinking. And I think this like showed us that sometimes we have to be ready to change quick. Our mind has to be trained to work faster, so to speak. It may happen again in the future, whatever your situation is, even if you never moved from the place you were born. You have to change job quickly, you have to move to a different town, or for whatever reason something may happen to you and your vision of the world and of your life totally changes. So I think always being prepared for quick changes is a good thing. Most of all, to train ourselves how to change quick, how to react quick in a certain way, but not reacting like without thinking, but sort of like muscle memory. The more you do something, the more you used to do it without thinking about it. Obviously you have to focus on doing something good, and then with habit you'll be trained to do something good for the better and to better yourself. Like it would be when you get used to improve your intuition, you get used to listen your intuition more and faster, and that in theory should be enable you to make better decisions, for example. Or if you train how to listen to your like inner voice, if you want to say that, or your energy, it will be easier for you after a while to understand the people that you're like in front of you, the new people that you meet, and you train your intuition to respond quickly, which in some situation it's better when you can make like quick decision on the spot as fast as possible. And even the last few years, when a lot of people moved, I'm sure that a lot of people were like unprepared. They never thought about moving. They never thought about changing their jobs. They never thought about taking new opportunities. But even before that, in general, if we never train ourselves how to respond to the change and like to all changes that we constantly face in our lives, it would be always difficult to properly respond to any change. And doesn't necessarily mean that every change is like bad or good, positive or negative. That's like your perspective, whatever label you want to give to it. Even something that could be like mundane, like just changing countries, changing jobs. For some people it's not that easy. Maybe for us it's easier because we already done it. We're kind of used to it. It's not always funny. It brings a certain amount of instability, but it depends. You can call it flexibility. So it depends which way you want to look at things. What's your perspective? I often watch videos and read all kinds of stuff, all kinds of websites and books. Especially Europeans wanting to move abroad, Americans wanting to move abroad. A lot of Europeans want to move to Southern Europe, for example, for the weather, because it's cheap. Some of them to Eastern Europe, because they say there's a little bit more freedom and it's cheap. And a lot of Europeans also move to like other side of the world, Mexico, for example. A lot of Americans are in Mexico. And conversely, it's kind of funny at the same time interesting to see that, for example, a lot of Mexicans move to the United States, or like me, I'm here in the US right now, and a lot of Americans, they want to move to Europe or they want to move to Italy. So it's always interesting to see the place that we just left is interesting for other people, and other people are looking to move to the place that we just left. So that's again like it's all a matter of perspective. Why are we leaving that place if other people want to go there? Or why are we going to a place where people are moving from? So I guess on an esoteric even standpoint, it's always important to know why we do the things that we do. And I think even moving or looking for new opportunities may seem like fluff, but I've seen, and I always read both ends of the spectrum, so to speak. There's like the super new age people, and then the super mundane people. And I guess something that I've seen that's lacking a little bit is like if you want to say, the sweet spot in the middle of those two situations. I think it's important to be more spiritual, if that is even possible, because some people, some philosophies, they think that we cannot be spiritual being because we're not made of spirit, but that would be too complicated to explain for this video, in this video. But still, there's one side, one end of the line, thinking about spirituality, philosophy, and all of that, and then there's the other line when we only, or they only, or we only, whatever, think only about money, materialism, having a house, a job, buying stuff, uh, spending money, or the more, or if you want to say, the lower energies or the lower instincts of our lives. But I guess our life is comprised of those kind of two scales, if you want to say that. Um, so one of the hardest thing in our lives is how to balance, our spiritual or our more metaphysical, mystical side with our material side. And that's a little bit, or in a certain way, maybe the goal of every alchemist, every wizard, whatever you want to call it, every artist, or every person who wants to dig deeper in themselves and dig deeper to find the truth. And I know it might seem like trivial or it makes no sense, but if your mind is always directed to finding the truth or to dig deeper in your life, doesn't matter what you do, you will always have that kind of mentality in the background, so to speak. It's always like a buzz. Whatever you do, almost every moment, not every single moment, because sometimes it's good not to think about it, or you go crazy. But for me, it's always been interesting to research and understand why people want to move, why people want to experience new places, want to always go deeper and study less known topics, or especially when it comes to ancient histories, ancient philosophies, alternative theories, hidden knowledge. I think for us, also moving and living in different places in a certain amount, a certain, how can I say that, for some reason wasn't only to get a job and learn a new language, or improve your career if you care about that, but just like to learn about a new place, especially to learn about the hidden history of a place. Obviously, on this planet, whether you believe it's a globe or not, that would be a story for another video. Most of the things that are not on the surface, a lot of times, are the most interesting. Because, for example, let's say you're like, I've read a million times, you're like American, you want to move to Europe. Let's say, okay, we're like in Wisconsin now, okay? So, a lot of people in Wisconsin are of German heritage. So let's say you're from Wisconsin and you want to move to Germany. A lot of Americans right now, they want to move to Europe for the social welfare, which could be like a reverse shock for a lot of people, but that's a different story. But let's say you want to move to Germany, it would make sense also to understand why you want to go there. How's the energy there? Are you like attracted to Germany, for example, for whatever reason, or just because you're like, your family came from Germany 200 years ago, or you have a German last name, which probably now in Wisconsin there's more German last name than in Germany. But well, that's always a joke that I tell my wife anyhow. But maybe there's a reason why you're attracted to certain places. Especially if you're like interested in digging deeper in this topic, I would suggest astrology, even if you think it's fluff or new age. Just take a look at it. Astrocartography is really interesting. That's kind of a branch of astrology. And even talking to other people or reading other people's comments, you may find someone who was born, who knows, in Argentina, and for whatever reason they were attracted to Japan. That apparently has nothing to do with it. I don't know, maybe you believe in past lives, even if you don't. Astrocartography, for example, can explain why you're like attracted to certain places or some people, certain cultures, apparently for no reason. Way more people are looking to move to improve their lives, even like in a professional way. They're, maybe I don't know, in the centuries past, majority of people, they were like running away from poverty, or they were like desperate. Even in the Western world, so to speak, whether you believe such a thing as the Western world exists or not, that would be another story. Let's say you do. Now we can safely say that not a lot of people in the Western world move because of war or desperation. So there's way more people who just move because they're kind of on the next level. They're not like in poverty. They want to move because they want to improve their lives, or they want to study more, they want to make more money. So when there's not such a thing, let's say, as desperation moving you, sometimes it's harder to find the drive to keep going and keep pushing, because when you're desperate, when all you think about is when I'm gonna get paid again, where am I gonna find the money to buy something to eat, then all your focus is there. And when you're like past that phase, you have to find something more driving you to improve your life, and that can be anything. But for most people, would be always, making more money, or having more stuff, buying more stuff, or some people just like to go study abroad. But what is it that really moves you inside to make this big change? Because going to a place just to study, or going to a place on vacation, is obviously different than going to a place, living there. Because our daily lives are totally different than our daily life when we are on vacation. Seems kind of like easy concept, but I met and I talked to a lot of people who kind of like missed this point, and happened to us too. We lived in Germany for a while, and it was totally different than when we were there like as tourists. Even in my own country, I was born and raised in a part of Italy, and when I go to a different part on vacation, it's all a different vibe, but I'm there on vacation. And in some places probably I wouldn't live there, or I would have no idea how my daily life would be living in there. And this kind of like, it's like amplified when we move from one country to another, because we're changing pretty much everything. We're changing the culture, the language, the weather. Sometimes we're like in a different time zone. Maybe we're getting a new job, meeting new people. Bureaucracy maybe is different. So we're kind of like in a whirlpool. It's like we're like put in a blender. And I know a lot of people don't think about the more esoteric or energetic side of it, but I think it's really important because a lot of times we go somewhere, we think it's like, something wrong with the place, something wrong with us, but sometimes it's just like the energy is not right. Maybe our energy is not right, or our energy doesn't match the place's energy, or in the specific time in our life we're not ready for the energy. And I know it may seem like fluff for a lot of people, but also a lot of people never experienced something like that, so they think it's fluff. A lot of stuff is fluff until you do it. Sometimes it's fluff when you do it. You can think whatever you want, but I guess just to give a different perspective, if you never thought about something like this, because like I said, there's like a lot of talk about moving abroad lately, and you can go from super professional to hermit, but in the end, for most of us, the middle ground would be like, the center of the spectrum would be like the place where most of us are, or at least most of us who recognize that we have both a higher consciousness, if you want to say that, but also like a lower energy that keeps us to the ground, because in the end that's where we live so far. That's how this plane works so far. And personally, even in our own experience, we notice that kind of like balancing these two aspects is vital and important, because otherwise you could only think about meditating on this side, while on this other side you only think about working and making money. And you can go crazy both places, in both ways. I mean, you can go crazy always meditating, you can go crazy always working, and in both side of it you can burn out because there's no balance. I know it's easier like said and done a lot of times, but I think if you want to take something from this video, learn how to balance both sides of your life, and know that even something mundane like going to a different place most of the time requires the balance between our higher energies and our lower energies.